Sophie always believed in the simple joys of life. Growing up in a small town, she had learned to find beauty in sunsets, laughter, and the warmth of genuine connections. So when she met Liam, a quiet man with an easy smile and a knack for fixing anything broken, she thought she had found her perfect match. They met by chance at a coffee shop where Liam had helped her carry her groceries after a bag split open. He was kind, humble, and unassuming, and Sophie appreciated how grounded he seemed. His life was far from glamorous. He worked odd jobs, lived in a modest apartment, and always seemed to have just enough to get by. Yet there was something about him that made her feel alive. Their dates were simple but meaningful. Long walks in the park, late-night conversations under the stars, and quiet dinners at quaint, family-owned diners became their routine. Sophie found herself falling deeply for him, convinced that Liam was the kind of man who valued people over possessions. One evening, as they sat on a bench overlooking the town, Sophie hesitated before asking, "Liam, you never talk much about your past. What's your story?" He smiled faintly, his eyes fixed on the horizon. "There's not much to tell," he said. "I've had my share of ups and downs, but now I just want to live simply." Sophie nodded, sensing there was more he wasn't saying, but she didn't press. After all, hadn't she fallen for the man he was now, not the man he used to be? One day while they were walking through the local farmer's market, Sophie noticed something odd. Liam had taken a call, stepping away from the crowd to speak in hushed tones. His usually relaxed demeanor seemed tense, and she caught snippets of his conversation. "No, keep it quiet for now. Yes, I'll handle it." When he returned, he smiled as if nothing had happened. "Everything okay?" Sophie asked casually. "Yeah, just a friend needing some advice," Liam replied, brushing it off. But Sophie couldn't shake the feeling that something was different. Who was this friend, and why did Liam seem so guarded? As their relationship deepened, Sophie couldn't help but notice little inconsistencies. Liam always paid in cash, never talked about his family, and seemed to know an awful lot about fine wine and art for someone who claimed to live a simple life. Still, she brushed these thoughts aside, telling herself that everyone had their quirks. Then came the night that changed everything. Liam invited her to a secluded beach for a special date. As they walked along the shore under a blanket of stars, he suddenly turned to her, his expression uncharacteristically serious. "Sophie," he began, "there's something I need to tell you." Her heart raced. Was he about to confess something terrible? Was there someone else? But before she could respond, Liam pulled out a small velvet box and opened it, revealing a stunning diamond ring. "I know I've kept parts of my life hidden," he said softly, "but I want you to know the real me. I love you, Sophie, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you." Tears welled up in her eyes as she nodded, barely able to speak. "Yes, of course." It wasn't until he slipped the ring onto her finger that he added, almost as an afterthought, "Oh, and there's one more thing. I bought us an island." Sophie's mind was reeling. "An island?" she repeated, staring at Liam as if he had just told her he was an astronaut. "Yes," he said with a sheepish grin. "It's a little getaway spot. I figured it would be nice for us to have somewhere private." She blinked, trying to process his words. "Liam, how do you even afford something like that? I thought you—" She trailed off, unsure how to phrase it. "Thought I was just a regular guy?" He finished for her, his smile fading. "I guess I owe you an explanation." Sophie sat down on the sand, her heart pounding. Liam settled beside her, taking a deep breath before speaking. "I grew up in a different world," he began. "My family owns a series of companies. Real estate, tech, you name it. I inherited a fortune when my father passed away, but I hated the lifestyle. It was all about appearances, networking, and power plays. It felt hollow." He paused, running his fingers through the sand. "So I left it all behind. I moved here, got rid of the suits, and started living the way I wanted to. I didn't want to be judged for my money, and I didn't want anyone to love me for it either." Sophie stared at him, her emotions a chaotic whirlwind. "So all this time, you've been hiding?" "In a way, yes," he admitted. "I didn't mean to lie to you, Sophie. I just wanted you to know me for who I am, not what I have." Her mind flashed back to the modest dinners, the second-hand clothes, the way he had always insisted on splitting bills. It wasn't just humility, it had been a test. "So, the Liam I know, is that the real you?" she asked quietly. His eyes met hers, filled with sincerity. "It is. The money doesn't define me, Sophie. You do. You've shown me what it means to be loved for who I am, not for what I can give." Despite his heartfelt confession, Sophie couldn't shake her unease. The man she had fallen in love with had kept a massive part of his life hidden, and now as she stared at the sparkling ring on her finger, she wondered, was this the beginning of a dream or a nightmare? Over the next few weeks, Sophie was introduced to a side of Liam she had never seen before. Private jets replaced budget flights. Lavish dinner invitations from influential friends became a regular occurrence. And then there was the island, an impossibly beautiful paradise with white sand beaches and a villa that looked like it belonged in a magazine. At first it was exciting. Who wouldn't be swept away by such luxury? But as the days passed, Sophie began to feel like a stranger in Liam's new world. Conversations at these dinners often revolved around investments, politics, and business ventures, topics she couldn't relate to. One evening, as they attended a gala, Sophie overheard someone whispering behind her back, "Is that Liam's fiancée? I heard she's just a small-town girl. She must be overwhelmed. I mean, look at her. She doesn't fit in." The words stung more than she wanted to admit. For the first time in their relationship, she felt out of place, like she didn't belong in Liam's orbit. That night, as they returned to their suite, Sophie finally voiced her concerns. "Liam, I feel like I'm losing myself in all this. The parties, the wealth. It's not me." He looked at her, his expression filled with worry. "Sophie, I never wanted you to feel this way. You don't have to change who you are. I fell in love with the woman who danced in the rain with me, who laughed at my bad jokes, who made me feel like the richest man in the world without spending a dime. But this is your life, Liam," she said softly, "and I'm afraid I'm just a guest in it." Liam took her hands, his gaze steady. "Then let's find a way to make it ours. Together. You don't have to adapt to this world if it doesn't make you happy. We'll figure it out, Sophie." I promise. His words were reassuring, but Sophie couldn't shake the feeling that the road ahead would be anything but simple. Life with Liam's newfound identity became a whirlwind. Sophie tried to adapt, balancing between her old self and the glamorous new world she had stepped into. Liam, true to his word, did everything he could to make her feel comfortable. He canceled extravagant outings when she seemed overwhelmed, and they spent more time on quiet dates, like they used to. But the more time Sophie spent in his world, the more she realized how far apart their lives had been. Liam might have left his wealthy upbringing behind for a time, but his past hadn't let go of him. One afternoon, while organizing their villa on the island, Sophie stumbled upon a stack of unopened letters addressed to Liam. At first, she hesitated to look, but curiosity got the better of her. The top letter caught her attention immediately. It was from a law firm. Her eyes scanned the words: pending litigation, financial discrepancies, potential fraud involving Carter Holdings. Her heart sank. She couldn't make sense of it all, but the tone of the letter was clear. Liam's fortune wasn't as pristine as she had thought. When Liam returned later that evening, Sophie confronted him holding the letter. "Liam, what is this? What's going on with your company?" His expression shifted from surprise to frustration. "You went through my things?" "Don't turn this on me," Sophie shot back. "I deserve to know the truth. Are you in trouble?" Liam sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's complicated. When I left everything behind, I handed control of my businesses to people I trusted. Apparently that trust was misplaced. There's been some mismanagement, but I'm working on fixing it." "Fixing it?" Sophie asked, her voice trembling. "How deep does this go, Liam? Are we talking about a mistake or something worse?" "I don't know yet," he admitted, his voice heavy, "but I'll handle it. You don't have to worry." Sophie's chest tightened. "You don't have to worry" felt like a dismissal, as if she were just another spectator in his carefully curated life. Days turned into weeks, and the tension between them grew. Sophie tried to be supportive, but she couldn't shake the feeling that Liam was keeping her at arm's length. Meanwhile, whispers about Liam's legal troubles began surfacing in the media. Friends who had once welcomed her with open arms now treated her with polite distance, as if waiting to see how the drama would unfold. One evening, during a heated argument, Sophie finally broke. "Liam, I can't keep living like this. I don't know what's real anymore. You say you love me, but you're shutting me out. How am I supposed to be part of your life if you won't let me in?" Liam looked at her, his expression filled with anguish. "Sophie, I love you more than anything, but this mess isn't your burden to carry. I don't want you to get dragged into it." "But I'm already in it," she cried. "You made me a part of your world, and now I'm drowning in it. Do you even realize how hard this has been for me?" For a moment, Liam said nothing. Then quietly he said, "Maybe I was selfish to bring you into this. I thought I could protect you from it, but I see now that I've only made things harder for you." Sophie's heart ached at his words, but she couldn't deny the truth in them. The next morning, as Liam slept, Sophie sat by the window, staring out at the vast expanse of the ocean. She loved him. There was no denying that. But love alone didn't feel like enough anymore. She needed clarity, stability, and a sense of self she had lost along the way. By the time Liam woke up, Sophie was gone, leaving behind a note that read, "I love you, Liam, but I need to find myself again. I hope one day we can figure this out together, but for now I need space. Please take care of yourself." As Liam stood in the empty villa, clutching the note, he realized that no amount of wealth or power could fill the void she had left behind. Weeks turned into months, and life without Sophie felt like a hollow shell for Liam. The once idyllic island now seemed desolate, a stark reminder of what he had lost. He spent his days trying to untangle the web of legal issues that had engulfed his businesses and his nights thinking about Sophie, wondering if he had pushed away the one person who truly saw him for who he was. Meanwhile, Sophie had returned to her small-town roots, renting a modest apartment and finding comfort in the simplicity she once cherished. She focused on rebuilding her own life, exploring her passions, reconnecting with old friends, and discovering who she was outside of Liam's world. But no matter how much she tried to move forward, a part of her heart remained tied to him. One day, as Sophie strolled through the local park, she spotted a familiar figure sitting on a bench beneath a large oak tree. Her breath caught in her throat. It was Liam. He looked different. His hair was slightly unkempt, his usual confidence replaced with a quiet humility. When he saw her, he stood up, a hesitant smile forming on his lips. "Hi, Sophie," he said softly. "What are you doing here, Liam?" she asked, her voice a mix of surprise and caution. "I needed to see you," he admitted. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I've been doing a lot of thinking. You were right. I shut you out when I should have let you in. I was so focused on protecting you that I didn't realize I was pushing you away." Sophie crossed her arms, unsure of what to say. "And what about your businesses? The lawsuits? The media circus?" Liam nodded. "I'm handling it. I've made mistakes, Sophie, but I'm taking responsibility for them. I've stepped down from some roles, let go of people I couldn't trust, and started working with a team that genuinely wants to fix things. It's not perfect, but I'm trying." She searched his face, looking for any sign of the man she had once loved. What she saw was different. A man who had been humbled by his struggles, who seemed more grounded and sincere. "I don't want to ask you to come back," Liam continued, his voice trembling slightly. "That's not fair to you. I needed to tell you that I'm sorry. For everything. You deserved better." Sophie's heart ached at his words. She had spent so much time trying to figure out if she could ever fit into Liam's world, but now it seemed like he was trying to fit into hers. "Liam," she said after a long pause, "I don't know if we can ever go back to the way things were." "I understand," he said, his eyes filled with sadness. "But maybe we can try to find something new, something better, together." In the weeks that followed, Sophie and Liam began to reconnect slowly. They spent time talking, laughing, and rediscovering the connection that had first brought them together. Liam made an effort to be open about his life, and Sophie learned to trust him again. They didn't rush things, knowing that rebuilding their relationship would take time. One evening, as they sat by a lake watching the sunset, Sophie turned to Liam. "Do you think we can really make this work?" she asked. Liam took her hand in his gaze steady. I think we can, as long as we're honest with each other. No more secrets. She smiled faintly, a glimmer of hope flickering in her heart. Then let's try. Their journey wasn't perfect, but it was real. Together they learned that love wasn't about grand gestures or material wealth. It was about trust, honesty, and the willingness to fight for each other, no matter the odds. And as they walked hand in hand under the fading light of the day, they both knew that their love, though tested, had emerged stronger than ever. The end.